Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Israel and its geopolitical and strategic significance. Prime Minister Modi is the only Indian Prime Minister to have visited Israel, and in the last 10 years, it's the second time. I think the last time he visited Israel, he was the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel. That was, I think, way back in 2017. And now he visited and had the opportunity to address the Israeli parliament, Knesset, where he gave a speech. And it was quite interesting that there are essentially two or three things he highlighted in the speech. Number one, he took a strong stance against terrorism, condemned terrorism, and called for the world to stand against terrorism, and have some stringent criticism of what he said, really. He said that there is no cause that justifies murdering civilians, and we'll talk a little bit more about what he had to say about terrorism. And then he praised Israel as a superpower of innovation. And then talked about commonalities between India and Israel. I was quite surprised by the banal examples he was giving. I was waiting for him to say, oh, India also starts with I and Israel also starts with I. That shows that we are both innovative and imaginary, or something stupid like that. But anyway, this time he didn't provide that. But nevertheless, he made this very strong statement about terrorism and saying that it is absolutely, there is no cause that can justify the murder of civilians, and terrorism must be condemned, etc. And this was on February 25th. So Prime Minister Modi was giving a talk in Israel on February 25th. And on February 25th, 1994, an Israeli terrorist, a Jewish Israeli terrorist, Baruch Goldstein, walked into a mosque in Hebron and massacred over 25 worshippers and injured over 123. So it was one of the most horrendous terrorist attacks in Israel. He killed 29 worshippers, people who were praying, and then went on to injure 125. Prime Minister Modi could have recalled it and said, look, terrorism happens everywhere. Because he said terrorism against one country is like terrorism against everybody else, right? So why not talk about the victims of terrorism in Israel? The settlers are committing terrorism on a daily basis in the West Bank, killing people. And most incredible thing is that in the last 2 years, Israel has killed over 70% of its victims in Gaza have been innocent women and children. That is a genocide by most international scholars of genocide, human rights organizations, including the United States, have labeled it a genocide. There are court proceedings going on in International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court, which has issued warrant against Netanyahu. Netanyahu cannot travel now to 120 countries in the world. If he does, he will be arrested as a war criminal. And Prime Minister Modi chose to embrace this war criminal. And there are strategic implications where I will focus on, but I do want to point out this fundamental hypocrisy in Modi's position. He keeps talking about this civilizational idea of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that the entire world is the one humanity. If that is the case, doesn't that include people from Gaza and the Palestinians? So why doesn't he talk about the suffering of the Palestinians, the occupation on West Bank and Gaza, the systematic killing of innocent people, and complete destruction of infrastructure, civil infrastructure in Israel, in Gaza? When Israel killed Hania in a safe house in Iran, in Tehran, and then killed the negotiators in Qatar, Israel showed to the world that it could kill Hamas fighters without causing any collateral damage. Israel could have done the same in Gaza, which is under its direct control and occupation. If it can do this in enemy territory like in Iran, it can do something which is so targeted. Israel could have chosen to have targeted and killed all Hamas fighters in Gaza, but it chose to kill civilians systematically over a 2-year period. And Modi had not a single word to say about it. If India thinks that this is not being noticed by people in the world, it is. There are people out there who are writing about it. In fact, today I have an article, let me share that with you, which was published in The Diplomat, which is a very prominent magazine of international relations that is published here in Washington, D.C. And I talked about this fundamental and profound hypocrisy in Modi's position. He talks about terrorism. Even in India, there is so much of terrorism going on, domestic terrorism. People are being beaten up. People are being lynched on a daily basis. People are being beaten up for praying in mosques, etc. Just Google and you will see on a daily basis how thugs are going around in India, beating up innocent civilians, and the police does not protect them, and the law and order does not protect them. Ministers, chief ministers, make videos shooting innocent civilians and spread that as a campaign. So the campaign of a BJP chief minister of Assam is showing him using a machine gun killing civilians. That is he's promising terrorism in exchange for votes, and Modi has nothing to say about that terrorism. So the hypocrisy at the domestic level, hypocrisy at the international level, not a word about the tragedy of Palestine. The Ministry of External Affairs says India does support the two-state solution. Why didn't Modi talk about the two-state solution? He could have, but he not a word about it. Nothing about Palestinian rights, nothing about Palestinian suffering. So to me, that is completely one-sided. So one thing that we should recognize, it was profoundly hypocritical speech. Absolutely hypocrisy. It is apparent to everybody that you embrace it. The world, even in the United States now, where the Israeli lobby has so much power and control, there is clear condemnation of Israel's genocide in Gaza. In fact, there's a report going on that has analyzed why Kamala Harris lost elections in 2024. And you can just Google that and that report will pop up. It clearly tells you that one of the reasons why is because she was supporting Israel's policies in Gaza uncritically and had nothing empathetic to say about the Palestinian suffering or the victims of Israeli genocide in Gaza. So that is one thing that we'll remember. This speech of Modi will be an example. I'm sure if I outlive Modi in his obituary that I will write and publish and the shows I will do, this speech, I will highlight that this man has zero empathy for thousands of women and children who were killed. Zero. And he's right when he says that he's non-biological. Yes, he's non-biological. He doesn't have a human heart in his chest. He went to Russia and said that this is not an era of war, but he could have said the same thing here, that this is not an era of war. Why didn't he say so? Now, coming to the strategic side of it, India for a long time has been talking about there are two words that Dr. Jaishankar, India's foreign minister, uses all the time in the context of India's grand strategy. One is strategic autonomy, that India has strategic autonomy. India will practice strategic autonomy, which we have not seen with regards to the US pressure coming on India consistently. Like when Donald Trump said, stop buying Iranian oil, Modi stopped buying Iranian oil. Trump comes back in the second term and says, stop having any connections to the Chabahar port in Iran. Modi immediately complies. Where is the strategic autonomy to me? I don't see this. I see compliance, obedience. So there is no strategic autonomy that India talks about. And the second thing is about multi-alignment, that we are aligned with the West and we are aligned with Russia and we are aligned with the US. It was during the Biden era. Yes, you could say that India was part of the Quad, but India was also buying Russian oil. But once Trump became president, that claim that India was practicing multi-alignment was not credible anymore at all. It was not credible at all. So another example that he gave about multi-alignment is that India has good relations with Arab countries, and India has good relations with Israel. India has good relations with Iran, and India has good relations with Israel. This was an example of multi-alignment. But I don't hear Modi saying, I stand firmly with full conviction with Iran today. Like he said, that I stand with full conviction with Israel. So there is no multi-alignment there. In fact, the timing was surprising to me at a time when the United States is threatening to attack Iran any day now. It's quite possible that on Saturday we might see the first series of US-Israeli attacks, combined attacks on Iran. It's not very clear whether Israel will join or not, but the chances are that there is going to be a massive attack on Iran. Is India going to stand up and say we stand with Iran? They don't have the guts. This prime minister doesn't have the guts to stand up to Trump at all. He's so scared of Trump. So he goes to all the way to make Israel happy and make the US happy and make the Israeli lobby in the US happy by standing there, not talking about Palestine, not talking about the two-state solution, not talking about the genocide in Gaza, but just talking about Israel, how what great country it is. So I think India's national interests are not being served. India talks about civilizational relations with Iran. So why aren't you standing up for your civilizational connections to Iran? He didn't even mention Iran. He could have said at least that give peace a chance, go negotiate with Iran. No, he had nothing to say, didn't mention that at all. That was to me quite surprising. I wonder how the Iranians in Tehran are interpreting this whole visit of Modi to Israel at a time when Israel and the US are about to attack Iran. Netanyahu is constantly visiting Washington and egging the US to attack Iran and to destroy the regime in Iran. So I think one thing that Modi has done now, and that's why I called my article Crossing the Rubicon, is that I have shared the link. I'm going to share the link again here for those of you who can read English and understand it. Here it is in the Diplomat. But this whole idea of multi-alignment is not dead. So India's policy of multi-alignment, this is not going to be seen positively in Cairo, in Riyadh in particular. Plus, there's all this talk that Netanyahu is making of about hexagonal alliances. So there's this talk about an alliance between India, United Arab Emirates, Cyprus, Greece, and Israel against an alliance between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan. So if India is now strategically aligned against Saudi Arabia, then what happens to IMEC, the so-called India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor? This was supposed to go by sea from India to Abu Dhabi or to somewhere in UAE, and then from UAE by road through Saudi Arabia and Jordan all the way to Europe, connecting Israel as part of it. That's not going to happen now. So that the possibility of IMEC being, even though Modi did mention in his speech about IMEC as a connectivity issue, I don't think that's happening. Especially if this hostility between Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates continues, and India has also announcannounced some kind of a defense agreement. India doesn't sign treaties and alliances, but India has some kind of a agreement with United Arab Emirates for defense. This was done as a response to the Saudi Pakistan defense analysis and announcement. So Modi also in his speech talked and praised the Abraham Accords. Right now, in the 21st century, there are two genocides taking place. One is in Gaza and the other is in Sudan. And both the countries are part of the Abraham Accords. Not only are they both part of Abraham Accords, but they are also supported very strongly by the United Arab Emirates, UAE. So I don't know what's so great about Abraham Accord bringing peace. They are not bringing peace. Israel attacked 7 countries in the last 1 year. So what peace and stability is Israel and the Abrahamic Accords bringing to any part of the world? I think you have to be profoundly blind to make such assertions and not experience any criticism or pushback at it. So 2 things have happened in Prime Minister Modi's speech. One, he's crossed, I think, the Rubicon. It is very clear that he stands. Already we could see that they were giving lip service to the Palestinian cause, but India was standing firmly with Israel, especially in the UN voting patterns, etc. And then there is this whole issue of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. For India, it is very important to become self-reliant, but India is incapable, it seems, to produce defense technologies. It's constantly after other countries. Please give us technology. Please give us technology. So whether it is with the United States asking General Electric to transfer technology so that India can make jet engines based on General Electric's technology and research, or going to Israel and then asking for technology to teach us how to do better agriculture, teach us how to do this, etc. Then the same with the Soviet Union, Russia. It's the same with Safran in France, the so-called fifth generation. In fact, recently India grounded its entire Tejas squadron, the 30-32 Tejas fighters, Tejas 1. India basically because, well, HAL claims, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited claims that it was some brake failure, a small incident. But if it was a small incident, you would not ground the entire fleet of 30-32 Tejas which are there. So the flaw is clearly systematic. Something systemic is has gone wrong. If you remember, in November, a Tejas at an air show in Abu Dhabi crashed, and the pilot died, and the plane was completely lost. So in the past 1 or 2 years, there have been 3 crashes with Tejas. Tejas is supposed to be the cutting edge of India's domestic technology. But if you look at Tejas, the engine is 404, F404 that comes from the US. It's a General Electric engine, 100%. So it's like saying that I make strawberry jam, but strawberries come from somewhere else. So how can you claim? What are you doing? You have the bottle, you have the sugar and the water, and you mix it all up and cook it up and put it in a bottle and call it an indigenous strawberry jam when the strawberry itself is imported. So if you're making jet fighters with jet engines imported, there's nothing indigenous about it. And India is so dependent on US jet engines to have any kind of domestic that it wants 404 for Tejas 1, it wants 414. India just bought 99 of those, signed an order for over $1 billion with General Electric for 99 414 jet engines for Tejas 2. And India is now negotiating with Safran to have a more advanced engine for a fifth generation fighter, which probably will come in 2040. By then, the other countries would have their sixth generation fighters already. India is still struggling with the 4.0 technology. For Tejas 1 is a fourth generation fighter. Tejas 2 will be a 4.5, like Rafale. Even when India is buying Rafale, it's not getting the full source code, so it's struggling with that aspect also. So there are serious negotiations going on with Rafale to transfer some parts of the source code. So there's India's inability to innovate in the defense sector, particularly. India's manufacturing capacity has also gone now less than 13% of the GDP is manufacturing. So India's not making anything. They just talk from Modi about Atmanirbhar Bharat, make in India, but there's nothing really happening. So this whole idea of going to Israel is about asking Israel for technology transfer to India. Technology transfer in the defense area. Tejas radar systems are from Israel. Tejas targeting systems are from Israel. The missiles that Tejas 1 uses are also from Israel. So there is nothing Indian about Tejas. Most of the technology comes from the US and Israel, and the box, the jet, the brakes, etc., things that are failing right now were made in India. So India, this trip to Israel is more about trying to make India globally competitive in technology and ahead of its competitors, trying to bridge the gap that is between Chinese capabilities and India's capabilities. Look, China is already flying its fifth generation fighters. JC-20, JC-30 are already out there. And JC-10s have performed incredibly well recently. So you can see that. So that is, to me, a very interesting development. So I was reading some Indian responses to Modi's visit, and I was quite amused to see that many Indians feel actually quite humiliated that India is the biggest country in the world with 1.5 billion people. It is the fourth biggest economy, and the way Modi was groveling in front of Israel for technology transfer was quite pathetic. Israel is a small country of 8 or 9 million people. Okay, it's not even 1 crore. The population of Israel is 90 lakhs. India's population is 140 crores. And Israel is 1/8 of India. It's a $500 billion economy. So the gap between Israel and India is huge in terms of innovation, technology, economy, etc. So yes, India is hoping that Israel will help India become a more advanced country. So perhaps that is the hope. But if you look at the 16 MOUs the two countries have signed, most of it is one way. Israel is going to be this and that, is going to establish all kinds of centers for excellence in India, etc., which means Israel is going to basically tutor India and transfer technology, etc., to India. And all India is going to provide is cheap labor. So about a few thousand, some people are saying 50,000 Indians will get visa to go and work in menial jobs, labor workers in Israel. It's interesting as to how we don't hear about much of India's IT people going and working in Israel. If India is so advanced and so cutting in IT services, etc., how come they're not able to do as well in Israel as they do in the US? Like the CEOs of most major US companies are from India. But why aren't they in Israel? That's an interesting question. We'll explore some other time. So anyway, this is what I wanted to share. So if you, I'm going to share the link to my article once again. And don't forget, go and look at this article in the Diplomat. Modi crosses the Rubicon and embraces Israel. And thank you for watching Conversation. Do subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Share this video with your socio-political network. And until next time, I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Take care.